Hey, I'm Daniel from RTINGS.com. Today we'll be doing a review of the Razer Raptor. No wait, sorry, the 2021 Razer Raptor. It's a follow-up to the original Razer Raptor and appears almost identical, but has a faster 165Hz panel with the same design and 1440p resolution. We'll be evaluating it on our standardized test bench to see how it performs and if you should buy it. Now, this is a Razer product, so we should probably start by talking about the RGB lighting. It's a nice effect around the stand and is fully controllable with the Razer Synapse software. On the back of the stand, there's also tracks for cable management, and the monitor comes with a full range of neon green cables, which is a nice touch. There's a good range of inputs on the bottom, with HDMI, DisplayPort via USB-C, and direct DisplayPort connections. Just note, the HDMI port is bandwidth limited to 144 Hz. If you have a few devices, then changing inputs often is difficult on the monitor due to the stand. You're better off leaving the monitor cables and stand as one unit and then swapping devices. Unfortunately, it costs extra to buy a VESA Mount Adapter for the monitor, and if you do that, then you do away with the stand lighting. The back of the monitor has a fabric finish, which is really unique and makes it feel really well built overall. Now let's take a look at the tests. We'll start with the contrast. A high contrast ratio is important if you use the monitor in the dark for deep dark scenes. Like most newer monitors, this one has an IPS type panel. They're generally regarded as the best option for monitor use for a few reasons, which we'll talk about in the review. But a downside is poor blacks. The contrast ratio is fairly typical of this panel type and is not really a good option for dark rooms. Local dimming is a feature that controls the brightness of individual zones of the backlight to mitigate the low contrast. This monitor doesn't support it though, so the mediocre contrast can't really be helped. Onto the brightness. A bright monitor helps to counteract glare in a bright room or to produce bright highlights for an impactful image in high dynamic range or HDR games. This monitor does have a great brightness and shouldn't present an issue in rooms with some light. For HDR, it's also better than most, but limited due to the lack of local dimming, which otherwise can help to boost the brightness of small highlights. Also important for a bright room is good reflection handling. The Razer Raptor has a great anti-reflective coating, which diffuses reflections across the screen due to the hazy finish. It shouldn't be an issue even in a moderately bright room. A potential downside of a hazy coating is if it causes small details like text to appear grainy. While this isn't an issue on this monitor, text is still only rendered okay. As you can see in the top image with Windows ClearType enabled, the standard RGB panel can produce well-defined text when the subpixel rendering is taken advantage of. The bottom picture is taken without ClearType though, and small details and diagonal lines can be lost. Now for the viewing angles. A good result here is important to ensure colors at larger angles at the sides of the screen don't look washed out. One of the advantages of this IPS type panel is the good viewing angles, so this really isn't an issue. An overall uniform screen brightness and color is important for gaming or watching content to avoid distracting areas that are too dark or bright. This does vary between units, but we expect the 165Hz Raptor that we bought to be about typical. It has an even screen brightness, which is great, and it shouldn't be an issue. One downside of IPS panels is the black uniformity. Issues here are often referred to as backlight bleed and are visible as splotchy areas when watching dark content in an equally dark room. There is visible bleed on the edges, so this might be distracting if you use it without some lights on. Accuracy in the standard sRGB color space is important as it's the standard for computer use. This monitor does have an sRGB color mode, but we didn't find it to be very good. We don't know if it's just that the monitor we bought that performs worse, or if it's really a sign of the quality control. Unless you really want an accurate image, it's not a big deal though. Now, if you want to use this monitor for HDR, then it's important to display more vivid colors for a more impactful image. This Raptor 27 performs great here, with the ability to display vivid colors in high dynamic range games. Now, the main change from the old Razer Raptor is the refresh rate. As a gaming monitor, it makes sense. High refresh rates are important for gaming as they allow for monitors to be more responsive. And if the monitor supports variable refresh rates, then you can get a smooth experience without tearing regardless of the changing frame rate. This increase in refresh rate does help. It also supports both G-Sync and FreeSync for compatibility with new AMD or NVIDIA graphics cards. Just note that if you're using the HDMI port, then the monitor is bandwidth limited to 144 Hz. A fast response time is important for the clearest image without distracting blow when gaming. The Raptor 27 has a well-tuned response time for a great result. There is some overshoot visible as a brighter smear to the left-hand side of this moving logo photo. Overall, this great result isn't surprising as fast IPS panels do tend to perform well here, but even among its peers, it's pretty good. There is an adjustable overdrive setting to tune the response time, and we found both the strong and weak settings to perform well. If the frame rate drops when you're gaming, then the weak response time is a bit better, as otherwise there can be too much overshoot. Black frame insertion or backlight strobing is a useful feature if you really want the clearest image when playing fast-paced games. The Razer Raptor 27 can flicker the backlight between 120 and 165 Hz, depending on your input signal. This is a pretty narrow range though, and like most monitors, it doesn't work when the refresh rate is changing with VRR. Now, a low input lag is really important for a responsive feel when playing video games. Like most monitors with a reasonably fast refresh rate, it does feel responsive and you're unlikely to have any issues. So after all that, should you buy this monitor? Overall, it's a solid performer for gaming, and there's really not much bad to say about it. The monitor market moves quickly though, so there is a lot of tough competition. If you love the Razer brand and want to pair this with your Death Adder mouse, your Black Widow keyboard, and your Gigantus mousepad, then go for it. But you are paying for a style rather than just the monitor's features. If performance is really what you care about, then go for the Gigabyte M27Q. It's almost the same monitor, but without Razer's design and price.